Breakdown of the eighth step of alcoholics. Anonymous list. We made a list of all those we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. This step addresses a topic that many of us have had doubts about, which is making amends, as there are several questions surrounding this important issue, such as, to whom should I make amends? How should I do it? Is it really wise? When is the right time to make amends? All of these questions will be answered in both the eighth and ninth steps. This step deals with the interpersonal relationships we have had throughout our lives. Practicing the eighth and ninth steps involves, first, taking a look at the past to realize who we have hurt. Second, making a vigorous effort to begin to repair that damage. And finally, having cleared away the debris of our past, trying to improve ourselves in order to have better interpersonal relationships. It should be remembered that we had already examined our lives in the fourth step, and in this step we will have to redouble our efforts, as we will open up some very painful wounds, some old, and some that have been forgotten. This surgical intervention on the soul may seem unnecessary, but in order to practice the eighth step and consciously make a list of the people we have hurt, we will have to do it. If we have the goodwill to repair the damage, we will surely have very satisfactory results from this step in peace with ourselves. However, in the process of this step, several obstacles will arise that will prevent us from making a sound judgment regarding this list. The first obstacle that arises is forgiveness, since there are times when we still resent people because the relationship is broken and twisted. We focus on the bad things the other person has done so that we don't have to forgive them. We still believe that they are the ones who should ask us for forgiveness. That is why we justify our bad behavior by saying that they are to blame for us having been bad to them. However, we must pause to analyze this point carefully, as we must admit that when we were active and using, we were the ones who brought out the worst in people and, with our character flaws, encouraged others to behave badly like us. Those of us who are sick have not sown flowers and cotton in life. On the contrary, we have sown hatred, resentment, rejection, betrayal, and ungovernability in society and our families. We have been people who do not consider the feelings and needs of others. Rather, we have demanded that everyone love, respect, and want us, but we have never given them anything. We want them to give to us, but we do not want to give. This and many other situations can be gleaned from the analysis of the eighth step. When we began to bring this step to life, we realized that we were preparing to face up to our acts of poor judgment towards others, and we felt very ashamed of the confession we made to our sponsor, in which we revealed facts that caused us shame and embarrassment. However, this step invites us to confront the people we hurt, and this really overwhelmed us. Before continuing with the breakdown, we would like to emphasize that this step necessarily requires a sponsor to monitor the list and what we are going to do or plan to do, since the sponsor's guidance will help us overcome our doubts and difficulties. Continuing with the breakdown of the step, there are some questions that the sick person asks themselves in order not to make this list of people and repair the damage. Why do we protest? Why not say, the past is the past? Why do we have to think about those people? These were some of the ways in which fear conspired with pride to prevent us from making a list of all the people we had harmed. Others have had an obstacle that has prevailed in our lives, which is selfishness. Since we thought that when we were active, that is, when we got drunk or high, we really didn't affect anyone else. Since we deceived ourselves and lied to people, saying things like, "The only one who was hurt by my drinking was me. I never put my life at risk because of my drinking or drug use. I don't ask anyone for money to get drunk. Don't get involved in my life," and a series of other justifications that prevented us from really looking at the people we hurt, not only by our drinking and drug use, but also by the way we treated others. Although much of the damage we have done may not seem so severe, the damage it may have caused us emotionally was extremely profound. This is even where our emotional disorders originated, with which we have been hurting people and ourselves. Some repairs can be made immediately, while other damage may be postponed, depending on the circumstances of the individual or the person trying to repair the damage. That is why we must take a detailed account of the damage in our past lives to know when we were victims and when we became perpetrators of what happened in our lives. We must remember that the bad relationships we have had with our family, partner, children, and at work have been one of the causes of our suffering. How will I know when I have caused harm to someone? To define the word harm in a practical way, we can say that it is the result of a clash of instincts that causes someone physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual harm. In other words, when we treat someone unreasonably, our instincts are likely to be vengeful and selfish towards us. For example, a person who is selfish in their sexual instincts will provoke jealousy, revenge, and betrayal in the other person, meaning that they will be unfaithful to us. A person who is irascible will generate in others a deep feeling of revenge and resentment against us. A person who strips another person of their material possessions will cause them to be contemptuous and vengeful towards us. These are perhaps the most obvious forms of harm. But what about the more subtle damage we cause? Suppose we are irresponsible, stingy, and irritable with our family, that we are pitiful, neurotic beings who believe we are perfect, and that others are the ones who make mistakes. Suppose we demand more from everyone than they can give. Without a doubt, alcoholics and drug addicts are despised by all types of society, whether it be work, family, or friends. There will be rejection from everyone because of these personality traits we have, since it reaches the point where no one can stand us and we are only repudiated by society as a whole. When we realize this, it is time to get started, and it will surely not be difficult for us to identify the people we have hurt, starting with those closest to us, such as our family, then at work, and with our friends. We will have to analyze these social spheres to identify and include them in the list of people we have hurt. This list should only be limited to what we have done. That is, we stop judging others and see the damage we have done, not what other people have done. We must avoid criticizing others and stop looking at what people did or did not do. We must focus exclusively on ourselves and stop blaming others without exaggerating their faults or our own. We must view them as a middle ground, which is why the sponsor will help us understand and comprehend each of the situations we find ourselves in. Surely, as we write this list of people whom we have hurt, our conscience will begin to waver as our pride and fear make themselves felt. But we must gather our strength because this step will bring us peace with ourselves and with society as a whole. For it is the beginning of the end of our isolation from God and our fellow human beings. To Alcoholics Anonymous and Personal Transformation, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to turn on notifications to receive alerts for our new videos. Together, we can build a community of support and hope. Until next time, and take care.